Queens, so I spent a lot of time here, and it's a pleasure to be back. And you'll understand why we're in Brooklyn in a moment. Let's talk about where we are today. Fact by fact across the morass, we're all trying to find our way through this. And following the facts are the way we have chosen to do it in the great state of New York. Facts today are good. The total number of hospitalizations are down. The rolling total is down. The change in intubations, people who are put on ventilators, is down, so that's very good news. And the number of new COVID cases per day is also down, 163, which is the lowest that has been. So that is all very, very good news from our point of view. The relatively positive news is the number of deaths continues to decline, 74. This is always painful. And we're going to be watching this number to see how far down it actually goes. We have a large state, and the COVID virus tends to attack those who are seniors and those who have underlying illnesses, and will remain a cause of death for the foreseeable future, I'm afraid to say. But we want to get this number down as low as possible, and we're doing everything that we can to do that. We have the best hospitals, the best doctors, the best nurses. They're all working day and night, so we can take a little solace in the fact that we know we have done everything we can to help save those 74 lives. You can't always be successful, but you can always do the most that you can do, and that's what we're doing. And you see, again, the number of lives lost and how that number is coming down, so that is all good news. Yesterday I was in Washington, D.C., spoke to a lot of people. I met with the president, spoke to congressional members, spoke to Senate members to try to find out what was going on. This is my opinion, so it's worth what you pay for it, since you're not paying anything. I understand what states must do to work their way through this pandemic. The states are taking the lead in the responsibility. I understand that. I understand what governors must do. I am vice chairman of what's called the National Governors Association, so I work with governors all across the nation. And we talk about our responsibilities, and I feel good about what the states and what the governors are doing. My question is, what is Washington going to do, the federal government, because they have a role also in this? Yes, the states are in charge, and yes, the states are implementing their plans, but we need support from the federal government, and that's the role of the federal government. Washington has passed numerous pieces of legislation, and they've successfully bailed out big corporations. They passed pieces of legislation that have a lot of benefits for the rich and the powerful. Now the question is, what is Washington going to do in terms of passing legislation that helps working Americans, right? Police officers, firefighters, school teachers, hospitals, unemployed people, businesses that are struggling. How do we help them? How do we bring them up? And that's what states do and local governments do, and that's state and local government funding, and they have to provide that. Also, my opinion is Washington should, just for this once, end their proclivity to make every piece of legislation pork barrel legislation. I understand they have to get senators to vote for it, and they have to get House members to vote for it, but that doesn't mean they have to make it a gravy train of pork just to pass it. Maybe you can just pass a bill on the merits of a bill. How about that? Novel, but possible. This is supposed to be a specifically targeted piece of legislation to help restore the economy and repair the damage of the COVID virus. Well, then make the legislation about funding to repair the COVID virus. And you know where the COVID virus has been in this country. You know where it's wreaking havoc. You can count the number of deaths and where they are. You can count the number of positive cases and where they are. You look at the past legislation that came out of Washington and how they dispersed money, and you look at how they wound up making it a gravy train. and every state got a lot of money, local governments got a lot of money, and in many cases disconnected from the COVID virus and the COVID situation. If you take the total funding and you actually look at how much states got per positive COVID case, it's not even close. Some states got millions of dollars per COVID case. New York State, we got about $23,000 per case. New Jersey, we got about $27,000 per case. I understand they have to, quote unquote, buy votes on a piece of legislation. I also understand it's taxpayers' money. And theoretically, a legislator is there to do what's right, and not because that legislator was seduced with large amounts of taxpayer dollars, even though that state wasn't affected. I also think Washington has an opportunity to actually step up and to be smart for a change. They should be talking about revitalizing the economy, not just reopening the economy. I don't believe you just reopen the economy and it bounces back for everyone. I think it bounces back for the big corporations. I think it bounces back for the rich. I think it bounces back for the powerful. That's what happened after the 2008 financial crisis, the mortgage fraud crisis. The big banks that caused the crisis, they were fine just months afterwards. They took all that federal bailout money, they gave themselves bonuses. I remember I was the Attorney General of New York. I chased those corporations to put the bonuses back. But how about the small businesses that closed? How about the corporations that are going to lay off workers now? What's going to happen to them? How about all those blue-collar jobs that are not going to come back right away? All those little retail stores that are not going to come back right away? So it's not just about revitalizing, not just about reopening, it's about revitalizing. And it's about having a plan and a vision for the future. Okay, we went through this. What's the plan going forward? We went through the Depression. But there was a plan afterwards. We went through World War II, but there was a plan to restore the economy. Where's the plan? Where's the vision? Where's the plan to say, yes, we went through hell, but heaven is on the other side, and we're going to rally and we're going to be better for this. BBB, build back better. We're not just going to return to where we were. We're going to be better than ever before. And to make sure that any of those corporations that took taxpayer money rehire the same number of workers. You hear these corporations now talking about, well, we're going to take this opportunity to restructure. We're going to get lean. You know what that means? That means they're going to lay off workers. That means they're going to boost their profits and their stock price by laying off workers and not rehiring people after the pandemic. Now, that's a corporation's right, but you don't have to subsidize that with government money, right? You shouldn't be giving them government cash, and then they lay off workers, and then the taxpayer has to pay unemployment for the workers they laid off. That would be a scandal, right? Well, if they don't stop it, it's going to happen here. And if they were smart, they'd finally rebuild the infrastructure in this nation, which they've been talking about for 30, 40 years, and they've never done. You want to put people to work, build airports, build bridges, put technology in education, put technology in healthcare, do the things you've talked about for 40 years, but the government was never competent enough to do. And also to Washington, after my conversations, so much of it is, well, here's our politics, here's our politics. Forget your politics, just put it all aside. There's a greater interest than your politics, and that's doing the right thing for this country and for your constituents, and stop the hyper-partisan attitude and the gridlock. Forget the red and the blue. We are red, white, and blue. We're all Americans. That's my opinion. Back to the facts. We're going to focus on the opening of New York City. We have reopened the other regions of the state. We divided the state into different regions. because the state has dramatically different facts across the state. We're in New York City, one of the densest urban areas on the globe. We have parts of upstate New York, which are rural areas, which look more like the Midwest, and they had facts more like the Midwest. So we divided the state into regions and addressing the facts in each region. The other regions have all started reopening. New York City, where we had a much higher number of cases than anywhere else in the state, anywhere else in the country, than many countries on the globe. New York City is a more difficult situation. We were attacked in New York City by the coronavirus from Europe. I like to say that because people say, what do you mean the coronavirus from Europe? I thought the coronavirus was from China. Yeah, so did I. So did everyone. That's what we were told. The coronavirus was coming from China. What we weren't told was the coronavirus left China, went to Europe, January, February, and then came here from Europe. Oh, nobody told us. I know nobody told us. They say nobody knew. I don't know how nobody knew, but the cases came from Europe. January, February, March, 3 million people traveled from Europe to JFK and Newark Airport. Why did New York City have so many cases? Because 3 million Europeans came January, February, March and brought the virus, and nobody knew. If you were exposed to a person who was positive, get tested. It's no cost, it doesn't hurt, and there are sites literally everywhere throughout the city. We've delivered more than 8 million masks across New York City to public housing, food banks, churches, and homeless shelters. The masks work. They work. And we have to culturalize the masks. We have to customize the masks for New York to get New Yorkers to wear them. We're bringing 1 million additional masks today. And today I'm signing an executive order that authorizes private businesses to deny entrance to people who do not wear a mask or a face covering. I have been working to communicate this message about masks and how effective they are. They are deceptively effective. They are amazingly effective. And we've made them mandatory in public settings, public transportation, et cetera. But when we're talking about reopening stores and places of business, we're giving the store owners the right to say, if you're not wearing a mask, you can't come in. That store owner has a right to protect themselves. That store owner has a right to protect the other patrons in that store. You don't want to wear a mask? Fine. But you don't have a right to then go into that store if that store owner doesn't want you to. And we'll sign that executive order. And in general, more communication, more education about the availability and importance of testing, diagnostic testing, antibody testing,